Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us on the Forget Your Pizza Party podcast. My name is Chris, and as always, I'm joined by,
Misty.
and this is episode 8. And this one we are going to be talking about what happens if your significant other also works in healthcare and some of the struggles that maybe you'll overcome, or some of the interesting quirks and features of actually having your significant other work in healthcare. Misty, how was it having me work at the same location where you worked?
That wasn't a problem so much because we both had a good rapport with all of the staff. We had a good reputation. So there really wasn't any, as far as working at the same location, there was no problem with that. I would say that at home life could be a little challenging sometimes because your frustrations would come home, my frustrations would come home, and kind of after being at the hospital all day and dealing with all these things, the last thing you want to do is come home and have another conversation about what happened.
So you found that it was difficult to decompress with your spouse and listen to their day because we both worked in the same environment.
Yeah, there were days and still even to this day, the last thing, when you're at work dealing with the patients or even just colleagues or bosses, management, whatever's going on during your day, sometimes the last thing you want to do is come home and actually talk about it. Then there are times that you do need to come home and talk about it. But when you're having a rough day, coming home and hearing somebody else complain or vent, it can be very taxing.
Right. I think one of the biggest things that I found was specifically was because we were both sharing the same kind of environment, we never really had the chance to fully decompress. We carried it home. Sometimes spouses kind of decompress, the other one listens. They're in different careers. So, there's some differences. One may not understand, so they stay silent. But I think one of the big things was we let sometimes competition get into, or us trying to fix each other's problems instead of listen.
I'd agree with that because it's just like, I know there's been times you've come home and you've said stuff, and I'm just like, try to fix the problem and be like, well, stop complaining because I don't want to hear it if you aren't going to fix it. And when sometimes you just need somebody to listen, it's hard, but it's also, it's also a good thing too, because in ways we understand each other. And I know there's times that you have difficulty with your patients or just however you have to handle certain situations. And that's the same with me. But it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad because sometimes you just need to completely decompress.
And have an environment where you're not having somebody else be focused on it because they work in that same environment. Sometimes having that separation of careers in different industries allows both individuals to decompress because they really truly don't fully understand what the other is going through. And you don't really get that when both of you work in healthcare, especially at the same location, which made some things kind of interesting. I fully believe we had some interactions with the same operational management from time to time. Um, I kind of was more of I'm going to get in your face and advocate for the people I worked for
Chris liked to rock the boat pretty much.
because I wasn't going to let us get railroaded by a nursing operations manager or anybody else that is going to put my teammates at risk and the patients at risk just because they have a door to floor in 4 hours mentality or like unsafe lateral moves. And I went to bat constantly. And I tried to maintain a very tactful approach to it, but I also went to bat and I developed a reputation that way. I still got awards though.
I don't think anybody disliked you. I think you were very well liked, respected. Obviously, you wouldn't have been able to work as a nurse practitioner there. But you know, it's hard.
It is.
A lot of times though, when I would leave work and even now, even working outpatient, last thing you want to do is talk. I don't know how many times I'm like, when I leave work, I would say, I just don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to talk to anyone. And I would literally drive home in silence sometimes because the last thing I wanted to do was have to think or make a decision.
Right. And my way of dealing with it is talking it out and moving forward. And I know yours was kind of shutting down and sitting in silence. It's kind of like the love languages, but for the hospital and healthcare. You
Mhm.
know, you really have to know each other's hospital love languages in order to survive. And we totally didn't pick up on the cues for each other. So that caused a lot of issues.
I think initially I think it was good. I think where it got really hard was during COVID because that was such a traumatic time that the emotions are high, the stress, the worry, the concern, everything you're seeing and dealing with, it was just all happening so fast. There was no outlet from that. I mean, zero outlet. You were struggling with your own stuff. I mean, big time. I was struggling with what I was going through, and there was nobody. I couldn't, a part of me couldn't understand your side of it, and a part of you couldn't understand my side of it. Yeah, it's one thing to see, just watch somebody go through it. It's a different thing when you're actually physically doing it day in, day out. And our jobs are very different because you're in the provider role, whereas I'm in more of the hands on following out the orders role. So I think up until that point, it was okay. Like our we had good stories. We had good days. We had bad days, but we were able to set it aside. When COVID came though, it I mean, I can't even explain it.
And I would say, to be fair, and we're going to be as transparent as we can, I think the rift that you and I had during that time period, we're even still kind of experiencing it even now.
Yeah, I'd agree because medicine is just different all around. It's never going to be the same. Um And I think there were a lot of good changes that happened with COVID, but then there are a lot of bad things that have changed. And it has made being in the healthcare as a somebody working in the healthcare industry, it's it sucks. It honestly does. It sucks. Job can be rewarding, but there's so much toxicity and stress on the other side of it that it's hard.
Well, the sad thing is that you have the stress of having somebody's life in your hands. At most of these organizations, and it doesn't matter whether it's outpatient, inpatient, for profit, um, most of them have a toxic work environment, either among your peers or among the management structure on the other side. And then that's further complicated depending on where you're at, whether you're skilled nursing, assisted living, LTACs, which are long-term acute cares, or even inpatient type of settings, where you have staffing issues, which further increases it. You have all of these toxic components coming in, and then you none of it's getting resolution,
Mm-mm.
and you're exposed to that all the time. And again, this goes back to another podcast where I had somebody say, "Hey, welcome to dealing with people just like retail." And I'm like, "No, it's different. You have somebody's life in your hands, and typically you have more than one life in your hands. And that in of itself, making sure that that person gets discharged and goes home to their loved ones is a completely different struggle and stress than working at Walmart or working Bath and Body Works or working a retail counter at an auto parts store. It's a completely different situation. And so you have that, and then you have no support, you have no outlet, and then you bring that home. And if you're fortunate enough, you have a spouse that works in a in a completely different industry that has no idea what it's like. You can vent, they'll never understand, but at least, you know, you can get it out.
There's that separation.
And there's that separation, you know, you have two different identities. You're different when you leave the house. You come back, but you have just enough of an individual identity in what you do outside of your home that you can maintain a semblance of a mental health aspect of it because the other person doesn't know. When you both work in the same industry, in the same kind of environment, there is no separation. There is no individual identity.
I think I think in a way too that our situation was a little bit unique because you yeah, you were rounding where I worked, but there during like on the weekends that you were there, but most of the time you were out in the community during the week. So, but yeah, you were seeing patients, but you were literally talking to these people up to what, 11 o'clock, sometimes around the clock. So there was absolutely no break. So you were coming home and you were still dealing with calls and putting out fires and figuring things out, charting, all kinds of stuff. So you also have that aspect of it. So yeah, you walked out the door, but it still followed you at home. So not only were you dealing with it, but your family was also hearing it. And that's hard.
Which I don't think people fully appreciate. When you work as an RN in the hospital, if you work 3 12s or 4 8s, or 2 12s, sorry, 2 12s, 2 8s, or 3 12s, you can get away. Unless you're heavily involved in committees and some other crap that they try to get you into, you can walk away. When your shift ends, it ends. You don't have charting, you don't have anything else. You might occasionally forget to have log a narcotic and have to drive back or something else. That's a whole different thing, or stuff that you need to bring back, but that's it. When you get home, you've got a day off. That's it. When you flip to the provider role, especially internal medicine, maybe some of the specialties, depending on your structure, I would get phone calls starting at 6:15, 6:30 in the morning up until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, 7 days a week, nonstop, sometimes even through the night. And then you're dealing with patients, you're trying to deal with the family situation, just everything. There's no break. It is 24/7, 7 days a week, nonstop. And then when we would get to vacations, I would crash.
Literally.
I would sleep. I would crave sleep. I would get actually kind of verbally I'd get verbally agitated with the family because I would go to sleep, and the one day I slept for what, 14 hours.
Oh my God.
And people want to go do stuff, our family wants to go do stuff, and I just didn't want to do it. Because again, it's the mental health. There's no outlet. Your spouse is working in the same environment, so you can't even talk to them about it because again, they're dealing with their own toxic situation. And I think it led to, I mean, if we're truly honest with one another, it's led to some severe separations at time, not separations in our marriage, but just you walk your path. I don't want to talk about it. I'll walk mine. You don't know my struggle. I don't know yours. Definitely during COVID, we kind of lost our connection with one another, and it's been a struggle and a fight ever since. And I think one of the best things we ever did was God, each one of us got a different role. You're an outpatient. You're not in the hospital environment anymore.
Yeah.
And I am in a more of an outpatient 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And so we do have some semblance of a work life balance that we did not have in our prior careers. But still, the element that, or the most common denominator among all of this, though, is we staff toxic environments with management, toxic environments with patients.
It's just a different, it's just different. Like it's the same thing, just maybe not as intense. Working outpatient it's, yeah, my job physically and mentally is easier, but there's still the drama. There's still things that you don't agree with. There's still stuff that happens, and the busyness of it is different, but it's still busy. It's a very busy environment. And you still have those asshole patients. You still have doctors that don't treat you right. You still have drama, and there's things that you worry about. But when I leave work, I can leave it at work.
Mhm.
And you say, as an RN, you only work 3 12s or whatever. I actually disagree with you when you say, as a nurse, you get to walk away. I can tell you, working in the ICUs, working in COVID, that does not leave you. When you come home, when I would come home, there would be nights I would literally come home and dream about my patients. And that's that restful sleep. I'm not physically doing it, but mentally, I was just a constant mental battle, and it would take a day or two just to recover from those shifts. So I kind of actually really hate it when people say, "Oh, you're a nurse, you just work 3 12s and you get 4 days off." No, you don't understand what those days off are like because of how hard it is. And I don't see it getting any better, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be I think it's just more and more challenges because you're already working short staffed, and then I feel like in a way they want to reduce staffing and just go with what they have and stretch you even further, and that's inpatient and outpatient. That's everywhere. But I don't think it's going to get better.
Right. So you see everybody right there
Competition.
was competition and not hearing what the other said. So my lovely wife forgets that I was a nurse and that I worked in a high stress environment
Mm.
as well. And so when I say 312s or 212s, 2/8, and you can leave it at the door, what I am referring to is that you are not having to take charting home. You are not having to take phone calls. You're not having to take any of that stuff home. The experiences that you have while you're working, of course, you will take that home and you will have to deal with it. But you don't hear the telemetry alarms.
Oh, yes, you do.
You
Ask
do.
any nurse.
You
You
do.
hear those
Okay.
stupid alarms
Yes.
all day
I
long.
worked on the telemetry and I know we heard it too.
Competition here.
But what I'm saying is that you heard it in your ears, but you weren't exposed to having to deal with it. I mean, in a real time, in a secondary nature, yeah.
I like how you're trying to backstep here and try to cover it up to make it look good.
See, no, no, no. This is part of our competition, and this is
A
why,
healthy debate.
if that's what you want to call it. Anyway, this is one of those where your wife is not right to keep the happiness in the home, and it's like having an immovable object meeting an unstoppable force, and she is stubborn, and so am I, and so we will not concede victory to one another at all. Period.
Never.
So, and that goes back to us playing sports. But anyway, my sadness with dealing with this in reality was knowing that this trickled down to our kids.
Yeah. They see it, or they did see it, and especially when we were going through COVID, they could see it.
And I will tell you that it's not just relegated to people that have significant others working. You're a single mom working in healthcare. You even if you're married or you have a partner or whatever, you may be bringing this toxic environment, mental health, and projecting it on your significant other or your kids and not even realize it. And I work with some people where we've talked about this, and one individual I work with said, "Yeah, my mom projected it on us. She was a nurse." That's very common. People that have generational family members that have worked in healthcare, grandmother, grandfather, parents. Now they work in it sometimes 2, 3, 4 generations. That is a very common theme, unless they're just one of those kind of people that you know the sun always shines and they have one of the most positive attitudes you ever be around. Most people have that projection of whatever they were dealing with, the stress on their family members, and they may not even realize they're doing it. And I am guilty of this even to this day.
I think we all are.
but I do it more, but the problem is I recognize it after I've already done it. And the problem with that is that you don't know the cumulative damage that you're doing. And so my outlet, unfortunately, sometimes because I don't realize how short tempered I'm being because of how we dealt with things during COVID, I sometimes will take it out on you or I'll take it out on the kids. And I don't realize it until I do my 1 minute thing or minute and a half. I get it out of my system and then I look at our kids and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And that's one of the big things that we're going to, as this podcast and all the things that we're doing builds, is one of the first projects we're going to try to tackle is access to mental health for us, for healthcare workers. Because I don't agree, I know you don't, that we should be using our insurance to access mental health, accessing our PTO time
Mm-hmm.
to get mental health, working in the environments that's causing our mental health. When you look at other careers, EMTs, firefighters, police, military,
People get mental health days,
they get mental health days.
paid
They
days.
have access to mental health individuals free of charge.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, you look
With
at
no limitation,
with
because
no limitations.
yeah, there's some places that, like, I think our insurance allows it, but it's only so many
It's 6 days.
visits.
It's
Yeah.
6 days. And I'm sorry, you're not going to correct or talk through a situation in 6 visits.
Uh-uh.
It's bullshit. And so one of the things that we're going to work on is creating a national, if we can, if we can get this thing rolling, is creating a national movement to get these healthcare organizations, whether it's private or nonprofit, to address the mental health issue within our industry and have it covered 100%. And that means techs, EVS, CNAs, anybody that's exposed to something that is traumatic or stressful working in healthcare should have it at will
Mhm.
and have access for free and not have to waste your See, the other dirty thing that they don't tell people is your PTO time is tied into your vacation time and your sick time. You don't have, a lot of these places don't differentiate the time. So you have to use your PTO time for mental health. Well, if your kids are sick, if you get sick or whatever, you don't have the PTO time. Guess what? You're not going to be taking it off to work on your mental health because you need that money coming in. And all of a sudden you go 6 months in a year and you haven't dealt with anything. It just keeps cycling over and over again. And that is not right. It's something that's really, really irritating because I know I could have used it. I probably shouldn't use it now. I know it's something you need to use because of things that we need to talk about with COVID and other situations. And so, that's one big thing. And that's one of the big struggles, especially with our relationship and the up and downs, is working in healthcare. And then we bring it home and we take it out on each other.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is a shorter episode. This is just part one because we have a lot of other things that we'll talk about on this. Again, we say it every episode, you are more than your job. You are replaceable. You are not replaceable to your family. You spend time with them. They are what's most important in your life, not your job, not your committees. Take care of them. Take care of yourself. Anything to add?
I just want to thank everybody as we go into Christmas and the new year. I know you're away from your families. A lot of you are going to be. We've been there. We've done it. It's tough. But just be there when you can. And, if you can, leave your worries at the door and just focus on being in the moment.
But you just said you can't leave your worries at the door because you take it home when you leave when you leave work.
I did.
See,
That's not a lie.
See, I'm just messing with her. This. I'm just getting her back because I can't let it go. See?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, competition. Anyway, you all have a great week. Keep those shifts coming. Keep those paychecks coming in. Take care of your families. Get home safely. Take care of yourself. Till next time.
Till the next time.
Healthcare heroes on the grind underappreciated. Weekend comes, but the pizza's not celebrated. Managers order, they just can't seem to get it right. We gather round, but we're ready for a bite tonight. No toppings, no love, cold slices on our plate. Pizza party, let the podcast begin. Healthcare warriors, let the laughter spin. Through terrible toppings and grease that we dread, we'll keep this conversation alive instead. Chit chat, laughter, it's our weekly unwind. But this cardboard crust feels like a sinister sign. Heartfelt stories wrapped in cheesy regret. As workers unite, over this pizza we fret. A slice of happiness, more like a slice of pain. Pizza party, let the podcast begin. Healthcare warriors, let the laughter spin. Through terrible toppings and grease that we dread, we'll keep this conversation alive instead. So here's to the workers, may your pizza improve. Together we'll rise and we'll make our groove. Healthcare heroes on the grind, underappreciated. Weekend comes, but the pizza's not celebrated. Managers order, they just can't seem to get it right. We gather round, but we're ready for a bite tonight. No toppings, no love, cold slices on our plate. Pizza party, let the podcast begin. Healthcare warriors, let the laughter spin. Through terrible toppings and grease that we dread, we'll keep this conversation alive instead. Chit chat, laughter, it's our weekly unwind. But this cardboard crust feels like a sinister sign. Heartfelt stories wrapped in cheesy regret. As workers unite, over this pizza we fret. A slice of happiness, more like a slice of pain. Pizza party, let the podcast begin. Healthcare warriors, let the laughter spin. Through terrible toppings and grease that we dread, we'll keep this conversation alive instead. So here's to the workers, may your pizza improve. Together we'll rise and we'll make our groove.